Welcome to Stat Chat, a podcast from the Solar Technical Assistance Team at the National Renewable Energy Laboratory in Golden, Colorado. I'm your host, Erin Nobler, and today I will be looking at trends in the solar market as part of our In the Field series of podcasts here at NREL. During today's podcast, we will be discussing Arizona Public Service's recent announcement on their rooftop solar program proposal announced last month. We will be speaking with one of our in-house solar finance experts, Jason Coughlin, about his take on the announcement. And we are also fortunate enough to have Mark Romito from Arizona Public Service to discuss the proposal as well. And Mark is the manager of the Renewable Energy Program at APS. So with that, I want to welcome our two guests, Jason and Mark, and thank you for speaking with us today.
Hi.
Hi, thank you for having us.
Yeah, thanks for being here. So I'll start with a question for Mark. Mark, can you please give us a brief overview of the Arizona Sun Rooftop Solar proposal and tell us how this program was created?
Sure. I'll try to be as brief as I can. So APS in 2009 entered into a rate case settlement where we agreed to have 1,700 gigawatt hours of additional renewable generation in the state and on top of the existing RPS in Arizona. That took the form of a program called AZ Sun, which was 200 megawatts of approved utility-owned solar projects dispersed throughout the state. Of that 200 megawatts, there are currently 150 megawatts in operation with another 20 megawatts under construction. So the total of that 200 that's active today is 170 megawatts. Last year, we approached the Commission for that settlement commitment and asked to build an additional 30 megawatts to complete that pre-approved program. And the Commission said, well, wait until 2014 when we can really determine if you need to build that to meet that settlement commitment. We went to them on April 15th and filed a 20 megawatt single-axis tracking utility, or what we call community scale, central solar plant that would have been located west of Phoenix in the desert at a facility called our Red Hawk facility. And that single-axis tracker would have met our settlement commitment, which requires us to have that energy in place by the end of 2015. So in parallel with that filing and that conversation of fulfilling AZ Sun, we've talked to customers in depth and had a lot of thoughts of what are some alternatives to doing this pre-approved utility-owned, utility-constructed solar central site type project. What's an alternative to that? Our customers have been very vocal about wanting to see APS participate in rooftop solar. We approached them formally in focus groups and in surveys and wanted to get a feel from them. If the utility were to own rooftop solar, would we have a marketable product that they'd be interested in having, knowing that we're not going to be able to give them the type of savings that they're going to see if they lease their own rooftop solar or if they buy their own rooftop solar. So we asked the customers and said, if a utility were to put a rooftop solar option out there and save you less money, would you be interested in doing it? And the result of those questions to customers was overwhelmingly in favor of having the utility get involved in ownership of rooftop solar. The reasons that the customers wanted us to participate were because we've been here for over 120 years. We're reliable. We're a trustworthy utility. We have transparency in our costs. Customers would know who really owns the system, that it's going to perform as it's supposed to, and importantly, that we're regulated by the Corporation Commission, which means that there's an advocate for the customer that makes sure that things are going as they're supposed to. And so the customers were vocal. They said, yes, we would like APS to own rooftop residential solar if the company is willing to do it. And we would, in a relative scale, 2-to-1, prefer actually to have the utility in the rooftop space over and above a national brand third-party lease. So we took that information and thought, okay, well, how can we develop a rooftop product that doesn't shift costs to non-participating customers, that gives an opportunity to expand the solar market, that isn't a takeover or a competitive move in solar. And we landed on a fixed bill credit option, which basically says that APS would lease the rooftop space of a residential customer. In exchange for their rooftop space, we would site the rooftop solar on their house. And we felt that a $30 bill credit was appropriate as a value for the secondary land use value for a residential roof, in comparing other utility-owned roof leasing programs throughout the country that have been focused on commercial and industrial spaces. This was unique in that it was going to be residential. So we felt the $30 was appropriate, and asked the customers again if there was a fixed credit and you could $30 and you'd save, get less of a bill credit than you would saving from owning or leasing solar. Would you still do it? And yes, they will. So we moved forward with that as a concept. At the same time, we're looking at the solar industry in Arizona, and we have some of the best solar installers in the world have been doing solar in Arizona for over a decade, and sometimes longer than that. So we had an opportunity to reach out to the residential rooftop solar installers in Arizona through the advocacy group of ASDA, the ASDA, the Arizona Solar Deployment Alliance, to begin discussions with them and saying, what do you think about the utility stepping in and owning an option for rooftop solar? They were enthusiastic about it, and recognized some of the same issues and concerns that customers had, that there's a lot of misinformation out in the public, that it would be nice to have some stability and transparency as an option for customers, and a sustainable option. And so we took that information from them and packaged what we feel is one of the most exciting and positive solar proposals out there. And we're building on some experience that APS has. That we've got residential rooftop solar that we own in Flagstaff that was built in 2010. That program was in partnership with the DOE to study high penetration PV on a specific feeder, and we learned some lessons on how to do that best and what the customers would like to see. That very successful project was wildly and enthusiastically requested to be expanded throughout the state. And in doing so, we wanted to have a customer offering that was simple, that was just another option for customers, that expands solar. And so we landed on a proposal to the commission as a second option and a preferred option to take that 20 megawatt utility scale, community scale, central site single axis tracking PV facility and allocate that on approximately 3,000 homes. So we told the commission in July, here's an option for you to consider. What if APS took that 20 megawatts and built that project in residential fashion instead of in central site fashion? And we recognize that in doing so, it's going to cost more. The capital spend is going to be about the same as the utility spend, but the utility scale spend, but we see more energy production coming from the single axis tracker. So we filed it as an option to the commission and said the benefits of expanding the customer base, of giving customers something they'd like to see, and working with the local solar industry outweighed the cost increase.
Okay, thanks. That was a really useful background. So Jason, when you first heard the announcement, what was your initial reaction?
I was actually excited to read about the announcement. I think any time that the incumbent utilities get involved in DG Solar, it's a positive thing. I've been waiting for utilities to kind of take that step. And so from the customer's perspective, I like the fact it's not unlike community solar in the sense that you're able to bring in a new customer class, if you will, folks that are renters or might not have the sufficient credit scores to participate in third-party options or borrow monies to purchase a system. So from that perspective, it's a nice way to expand the solar market. And I think from the utilities perspective, the ability to direct PV to certain key locations throughout their networks is also attractive. Historically, utilities are what I call location takers, as it relates to where these systems get installed. So I think it's a positive, and I hope we see other utilities jumping into the game based on APS's proposal.
So I'm going to ask another follow-up question to Jason. So we've heard you both say you've been talking about some third-party financing, and I think Mark mentioned it earlier. It would be great if you'd take a minute and explain what third-party financing looks like. Do you mind taking a second?
No, sure. So traditionally, we would have homeowners go out and purchase a rooftop PV system, tapping a home equity line or other available cash they might have on hand. In the past 5 or 6 years, we've seen the emergence of what you called, Aaron, a third-party finance systems. And there's two flavors. We have the power purchase agreement, where a homeowner agrees to buy the electricity from a system that's installed on his or her roof, but is owned and operated by a third party or a partnership between a solar installer and an investor. We also have what's called the solar lease, which is the primary third-party option in Arizona for the homeowner, where the homeowner goes out and agrees to lease solar equipment from a solar installer, and the reduced retail utility bill, the savings from those lower electricity bills, offset to some degree the solar lease payment. So basically, that's what we mean when we talk about third-party financed options, the solar lease and the solar power purchase agreement. So Mark, from your perspective, as we understand it, this is a new option or an additional option to the consumer in the APS territory. It doesn't supplant or prohibit, if you will, folks from going out and buying their own system or entering into the leases. Those will continue to exist, and folks can continue to interconnect those systems. Is that right?
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. We present this as another option for customers who may not want to own their own system for maintenance reasons, customers who may, for whatever reason, choose not to do business with a third-party company. But more importantly, there's a large constituency of customers out there that can't afford rooftop solar to buy it and may not have the credit that's required to lease a system. So this allows those customers, for whatever reason, to participate in rooftop solar and get a benefit from it and expand the solar market in our service territory.
Okay, thank you. And as a follow-up to that, so what happens to the SRECs generated by the PV system under this model, Mark? Can they be used to meet APS's RPS requirements?
Yes, like other AZ, Sun, or utility-owned projects in our service territory, the renewable energy credits associated with this project belong to APS and would be used for our state RPS.
And Mark, this is Jason here. So as we understand it, you're going to go out. I assume you're going to manage some sort of RFP process with your local installer community, maybe bid out in blocks of installations or blocks of kilowatt hours, and maybe based on your experience in Flagstaff. How do you go through, or what's your idea, assuming the proposal gets approved, how you go out and actually kind of bid out and select installers to do this work?
Well, of course, assuming that the proposal gets approved, the first step that we'll take is, we know who installs solar in the state, and we certainly track and have a relationship with those installers over a long period of years. So the first step that we take is we will issue very soon an RFI, or request for information, that will allow us to gather basically the market capability of the Arizona-based solar industry. Those companies who would like to participate in our program will answer various questions regarding their insurability, bondability, their ability to procure and warehouse and build a certain amount of solar in a certain amount of time. That RFI will be open for a period, and hopefully when the commission approves our proposal, we will go out to market with an RFP. And that RFP would then ask the industry to bid into our project, and would select a short list of those vendors, and then begin negotiating with them in terms of the dollar per watt install and specific maintenance requirements and various ways of doing business with APS. Very similar to how we've done other utility scale or utility-owned distributed generation projects in the past, like Flagstaff, like the school and government program. We'll select those vendors and begin construction with them.
Excellent, thanks. And then as it relates to the monthly payment, I believe you said it's structured as a bill credit. Any thoughts or initial guidance on, is that a taxable payment to the homeowner, or would that be something that would be determined by each homeowner's kind of tax advisor to the degree they have them?
Well, the status quo response to that one is it's always wise to consult a tax advisor. We're effectively leasing a roof, so my expectation is that it would be taxable income to a homeowner. It's a small dollar amount per year, so we certainly won't be issuing a 1099 as we did when we were paying incentive checks for renewable energy credits in years prior. But we see that $30 credit as being revenue to the homeowner.
Okay, great, thanks. And Mark, just as a clarification, I know you mentioned this before, there's the payment to the homeowner of $30 per month, and it sounds like that's fixed for the life of the contract with the homeowner. Is that right? And also, are there circumstances where this might increase over time, for example, accounting for inflation or changes in retail prices, electricity prices?
Yes, the answer to your first question is yes, that is a fixed credit for 20 years. And no, it will not change over time. We will offer a $30 credit per month for the duration of the contract.
And Mark, we've read some information in certain press releases that there might be options built into the lease agreement where the homeowner could buy the system. Any thoughts on, would that be periodic purchase options during the life of the roof lease, or sometime after the end of the lease at some fair market value calculation?
This would look at the end of a 20-year contract. How we'll position the solar on the house is in the form of an easement, and that easement has a life. And we'll put the solar on the roof with the expectation that it's going to be there. At the end of the life of that contract, so to speak, we need to make an assessment of the production of the distribution asset. This is generation on our system that has a useful life beyond 20 years, most likely. At that point in time, we can determine whether or not we're going to extend the credit or sell the systems or remove the systems and reallocate the generation. Those are options that we'll consider as we assess the production of the distributed asset.
Okay. And Jason, I have a question for you. Do you think other utilities will follow this sort of ownership model? And if so, or if not, why?
No, I certainly believe, and Mark, I would assume you're getting kind of calls from a number of utilities. So I think we're going to see utilities take an approach of, let's see how APS first gets approval, and then let's see how the rollout goes and see what the demand is. So I would assume that there's both utilities reaching out to APS now to get additional information, and then there's going to be utilities that are going to watch from the sidelines, see how it plays out, and then make their own decisions whether or not they get into DG Solar under this same mechanism that APS is pursuing. Is that correct, Mark? Are you hearing getting lots of interest from the utility community as far as how you plan to structure this and kind of the genesis of the program so that other folks might be able to follow this path based on your experience?
Oh, that's definitely correct. At our Flagstaff Clean Power project that we built in 2010, I believe is still the largest of its kind utility-owned residential deployment in the country. And we have school and government facilities that we have built and owned. So we're comfortable as a utility building and owning distributed generation facilities in our service territory. This is an expansion of that initiative, and we do think other utilities will follow suit. Other utilities already have, there's a filing in Arizona for Tucson Electric Power. They filed for their 2015 implementation plan, something similar to what we're doing. They've been working on for a while. We know that SMUD in California has made some comments recently about wanting to do something like that. So we certainly expect to see utilities doing pro-customer, pro-solar deployment of DG as it's appropriate. And certainly the customers of utilities around the country, especially in more mature solar marketplaces where there's an appetite for transparency and options beyond the traditional purchase or lease, where there's a demand and appetite from a customer base, those utilities will most likely be responding to their customers in a similar fashion that we are.
Okay. And then, Mark, do you know what the timeline is on this proposal? What should we be looking for in the future?
Sure. So, obviously, we filed in July. We have some procedural matters to deal with at the commission. There's some opposition to what we're doing, and right now that's procedurally oriented. We had hoped for an open meeting hearing by the ACC this fall. You know, we have a finite timeline to construct this 20 megawatts by the end of 2015. So that open meeting, we hope it is this fall, sometime early in the fall. It gives us the time we need to build the project. So the next step for us is procedural discussions and then a staff report where the ACC staff will weigh in on the utility scale option in comparison to the rooftop option, the pros and cons of our proposal, some feedback on some suggestions, and then ideally an open meeting where we can discuss the program at length. In that open meeting, the commission, we'd hope, would make a decision in favor of us moving forward. And at that point in time, we would open up the RFP to Arizona-based solar installers and at the same time open up an application process for APS customers.
Okay, so we'll be hearing about this a lot pretty soon in the future, it sounds like. So before I let you go, is there anything else you'd like to add, any other information that I didn't ask you questions about?
You know, our excitement is in the what this project, what this program has to offer customers is another option that expands the solar market, what it means to the Arizona-based solar industry and how excited those residential installers are about this. And as Jason, you pointed out, you know, some of the unique things that we can do with this option and this approach that allow us to really focus on maximizing the value of utility-owned, utility-deployed solar PV on the distribution system. There's a great amount of learning for us to do, and that's at the cutting edge of distributed generation, similar to what we've learned and experienced with our Flagstaff pilot project and those 125 homes on one feeder. We have some exciting things that we'd like to glean from this initiative. So far to date, we have over 1,000 customers who have expressed interest just on media alone. We haven't advertised anything, obviously. We're pending approval on this proposal, but that customer interest is noteworthy as well.
Okay, Mark, thank you. So I think we're about out of time, but I want to give a huge thanks to Mark Romito from APS for speaking with us today. And thank you to Jason Coughlin, one of our NREL solar finance experts, for his insights onto the topic as well. So thanks. And thank you all for listening to today's podcast. Be sure to check back for future podcasts covering other current events in the solar industry, as well as topics like value of solar and our Meet a Solar Expert series. StatChat is supported by the U.S. Department of Energy Sunshot Initiative, working to make solar energy cost competitive in the United States by 2020. Learn more about our program by visiting www.nrel.gov and clicking on the technology deployment link, or email us at stat@nrel.gov. Until next time.